Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today's video will be discussing the future standard banner characters that will appear in Aether Gazer. Just giving a brief explanation on what these characters have to offer and also giving recommendations on whether you should pull or not depending on the type of player you are. I don't really believe in a clear-cut meta for Aether Gazer, so I like to give information for multiple types of people in my videos. This is actually the last part of a two-part video, so if you want to check out part 1, I'll leave that in the description. So let's jump straight into the video, starting with S rank Leviathan. First character up is Leviathan. So I've noticed that a lot of people don't really like Leviathan because she's a healer. She is the best healer in the game, even in CN server right now, but that's just surface level. Leviathan is the best type of healer that you could want in any type of RPG game. What do I mean by that? In any RPG, you want healers that can do multiple things besides just heal. This is exactly what Leviathan is. First off, she can actually do decent damage if you build her right because she has a lot of built-in self buffs in her kit. A lot of her stats are double dipping to give more value out of them. For example, if we look at her skill 1, we can see that the more self-healing she has, the stronger her skill 1 will become. So the more she heals, the more damage she's going to do. It's almost perfect for a healer. Second, she also has debuffs in her kit. She actually has a pure defense shred and also a water resistant shred. This is what makes Leviathan the best support for Oceanus. That's all in her base kit, but if you get her signature key, she also has a melee damage resistance shred as well. So she is literally the best support for any melee damage dealers in the game up until Hera comes around. So me personally, I love Leviathan. I can put her in any team as a filler and she will do work. But her best team as of right now is with Oceanus. So should you pull or not? As much as I like Leviathan, I definitely feel like she's a safe skip, especially if you're free to play, unless you're struggling with the weeklies and you feel like you need a healer. If you plan to go for Oceanus though, Leviathan is one of the best supports for him, so I would recommend her if that is the case. Second character is S Shu. So this is a pretty disappointing character to cover, but let's get into it. S Shu is a support character with one of the most fun fighting styles in the game. Her main mechanic is switching from an offensive to defensive stances to gain stacks for her highest damaging skill. Her defensive stance has a counter mechanic which can be useful mainly for boss fights, but it does have a high skill gap in order to use this character as a DPS. Her main role is a support though, as an ult bot, because she has one of the most stacked ultimates in the game. Her ult gives a crit damage and a combat resource buff, which is very useful no matter what team you use. But there is better options for support characters in most cases. She can be a decent lightning support character, but I wouldn't go out of my way just to be a lightning support. When she came out, a lot of people were disappointed with her, mainly because of her damage. It's because of how she functions. She has to get counters off to do decent damage, so you really have to go pro gamer with her. But besides that, she is a fun character to play. I just wouldn't recommend you pull for her. Next character is Oceanus. So this is when Aether Gazer starts going crazy with their characters. This is post Hades. After Hades releases, things just start to get very interesting and the characters start to become very powerful. Even the supports are very powerful additions to the roster. As for Oceanus, he is a water type melee damage dealer that is part of the Olympus faction. This guy has some of the smoothest animations in the game. He took the famous quote, "Be like water," personally, bro. He's a pretty straightforward character. He has some damage buffs built into his kit, so he's a pretty self-sufficient character. A lot of his damage is coming from his water clones though. That's his mechanic, is he's able to produce multiple water clones during the fight. He's very fun to play, but I would say he slightly needs to be played with a certain amount of skill if you want to get the most out of him. You're gonna need to know how to dodge, because his dodge skill is one of the best dodge skills in the game. For one, it triggers a follow-up attack. For two, it gives him traits, that's his combat resource. Three, it gives him another water clone and refreshes his skill 3 buff. And then it also gives him defense penetration. I'm pretty sure that is a different type of normal defense shred, so this gives him an extra source of damage increase that a lot of characters just doesn't have. This defense penetration will also stack with the defense penetration that you can get from the Asterism faction bonus, so it's actually pretty powerful. That is another reason why Leviathan is one of his best supports in the game. She just fits perfectly on his team. His signature key is also good. It adds a lot of damage to his kit. It'll add a completely different way to generate a water clone, so if you have his key, that will reduce how much skill you need to play Oceanus. But I don't feel like he needs his key. It's nice to have, don't get me wrong, but he's an amazing character. I have nothing bad to say about him. No warnings. He's a solid character through and through, so I would recommend you pull for Oceanus if that is your type of character. Last character is Anubis. Anubis is another very solid character, a very cool character. He has some kind of gun blade that he uses, giving off them Final Fantasy vibes. But the actual cool part about him is the wolf. We have our first character that can summon another entity onto the battlefield, and this wolf actually does some damage, so it's not just a cool prop. The wolf does some damage, okay? I would say the wolf is damn near 40% of his overall damage. Don't quote me on that, but just know the wolf is an actual important part to his kit. Now you do have to play Anubis in a certain way. There is some skill to his kit. Some of his attacks can be cancelled before they come out all the way. So you have to keep an eye on the wolf to make sure you're not canceling his attacks too soon. So don't pay attention to my gameplay so much, because I honestly don't use Anubis that much. And when I do use him, it's just because he's fun. I'm not trying to go pro gamer with Anubis, so don't use these videos as a guide on how to play them. He also has some clunky things going on with his signature keys, so personally, unless you really like the character, I would just use the general faction key, because his signature key buffs the wolf. It buffs the wolf by a lot, but the way Anubis' kit works, a lot of his damage is coming from his ult, so there's a conflict going on with his signature key and his combat mechanics. There's different ways to build him, so I would do your research before actually building Anubis and decide whether you want to focus on his wolf damage or ult damage, because depending on which build you do can mess his damage potential up. But honestly, in my experience, he does enough damage anyway. I'm just letting the ones that care about all that stuff know that it is tricky to build him depending on what you want to focus on, so just keep that in mind. Besides that though, amazing character, very cool design, very fun to play, very strong. He is a dark damage dealer though, so there is some overlap, but all of the dark type characters in the game are pretty good. You'll find out soon enough that Yangshi loves their dark type characters, so if you like Anubis, he is a good addition to the roster. So those are the future standard banner characters. Part 3 will probably get into the 2.0 characters with Jin Woo and all the characters in the new faction. Yo, Yangshi does not miss with their character designs. All of them looks good and all of them are fun. So I'll be keeping an eye out on all the new modifiers. Be sure y'all stay tuned for all of that. But that is the end of the video. It is your pixelated homie. I hope y'all have a good day. I'll catch y'all in the next one.